The Falklands is renowned for its colonies of penguins, with tourists and locals having enjoyed their presence for many years. Now these here at Gypsy Cove are Magellanic penguins, but the Falklands is also the proud home of approximately 36% of the world's Rockhopper penguin population, with many of them making their homes in areas such as Steeple Jason, Port Stephens and more. However, in the annual seabird monitoring report that was released a few weeks ago, Rockhopper penguins were highlighted as a cause for concern, as their numbers seem to be on a downward turn.
So this year, I guess, again has highlighted a dip in the population numbers that's been apparent since 2015. As I said, we've been doing it for 30 years, and for different species, the dip means different things. So for example, with gentoos, we have seen both declines and increases in the population over that period. And so that we know, despite the fact that it looks like there's been a slight downward turn in gentoo populations at the moment, we probably wouldn't be unduly concerned, because we've seen previous declines go for another 3-4 years before they then started to increase again and reach previous population levels. So with rockhoppers, it's a different story, and the declines we've seen in rockhoppers tend to be ones in which we see a decline in the population, and there may be some recovery in the interim period, but often the next decline comes before the rockhoppers have reached previous population levels. So the rockhoppers are much more of a concern for us. They don't seem to be able to come back from these population declines.
Rockhopper penguins are currently monitored at sites across the islands. However, within the past year, breeding pairs have decreased at Fanning Head, Port Stephens and Steeple Jason, with breeding pair numbers overall still struggling to replenish themselves after taking a 31% decrease in 2015 as a result of mass starvation. This coincided with an El Niño event which caused a significant change in sea temperature around the Falklands.
So, I mean, there's a number of reasons that we kind of think that this might be happening, but it's really difficult to pin down in a range of ways. And it might be that there's less food available. Rockies particularly take smaller sort of prey species, so krill items and stuff, which may be more susceptible to changes in sea surface temperature than some of the other species which have got. They'll take a wider range, or maybe take some of the larger fish species or squid like the gentoos. So they may be more susceptible to change in prey, but also it might mean that we get a higher disease incident, or they don't manage to have enough weight. They're not. They can get some food, but not quite sufficient to withstand like the long molt period that they have at the end of the season, and so we see mortalities then too. So. Yeah, it can have a whole range of effects. It's the way in which we see these downturns in the population. Yeah.
While the specific causes of the decline in rockhopper populations are hard to pin down, it's likely that large-scale fluctuations in the ocean temperature are playing their part. And with global climate change unlikely to be reversed anytime soon, it's possible that we could continue to see big changes in the rockhopper population. And while conservation efforts can help vulnerable species, their efforts can only go so far.
I think it's very, very likely that there will be climatically induced impacts, either through lack of prey in certain seasons and stuff. But we do need to try and understand that to see what the long-term prospects are for the species, based on how often we might see the El Niños, if they are responsible, and also, in combination with that, try and reduce all the other pressures that might be on this species, where we can take positive action to do that, to alleviate the additional pressures that it's already under through these climatic changes. It's a numbers game, and at the moment, although the population is classed as being vulnerable on the global red list, that just indicates that there's a declining population as it stands. But when you've still got enormous populations, it's very difficult to do anything specifically manageable with them. We just have to try and understand the changes more, and to see if there's anything we can implement other than the obvious, which is to try and better reduce the effects of climate change fundamentally, I guess.
Unfortunately, only time will tell if the overall downward trend in rockhopper penguin populations will continue.